This video explores an experiential interactive energy triangle of self-encounter. The 3 points are human patterns, arising from the unconscious, and pausing and listening to facilitate awareness, depth, healing, and balance. There will be 4 half-minute pauses. A gentle gong will sound 20 seconds before speaking begins again. In each of these pauses, there is opportunity for you to name a parallel experience of yours. Grun, in the Spiritual Challenge of Midlife, Crisis and Challenge, makes this statement: entrance into the unconscious, going into one's inner depths, produces renewal, rebirth, and self-encounter. How encouraging it is to know that this is so, as we integrate pausing to listen to inner movements into our life and living. For me, this statement has been, for many years, the umbrella and grounding statement of how I have lived into depthing my own self-encounter, and as well, has been an umbrella and grounding statement for how I have lived into my role of facilitating others as they engaged with their self-encounter inner invitations. Out of many and various everyday experiences and witnessings of allowing the universal wisdom underpinning Grun's statement to reveal itself, I now rephrase its reality for me. When an invitation from the unconscious arises into consciousness, and we take notice, pause, listen, and accept these inner invitations to inner growth, and/or balancing what is out of balance, there is a stage of healing that brings us to inner harmony and greater wholeness. I love Robert A. Johnson's rephrasing of whole, used in this context as make holy. So first of all, we look at universal arenas of human experience. And so here we are. We have lots of conscious experience, and we can't hold it all in the forefront. And so it's held in sensory memory awareness. And dream energy uses that as day residue and also symbols to make dream content, but it comes out of our conscious experience. Then there's the near conscious, and this is neural pathways, intuition, sensing energies. And I have 2 symbols there. The blue line represents bottom line realities that we all have. And the little square is that mix of things that are there, can be easily triggered off by something in the conscious or outside our conscious. And in that inner circle, there's imagination and vision, that's potential near conscious. And then there's a deeper part of us, subconscious. This is where emotional patterning and hidden learning happens. I'll talk about hidden learnings later. And then there's the deep unconscious, and here is stored the trauma that we can't deal with, and true self, that part of us which is far beyond our conscious knowing. And there's a triangle there to represent the true self. And I am going to tell a story which came out of dream energy into subconscious, and then it also had an element of invitation from true self. There's another story I will tell, which is how true self invited an inner conversation with my conscious self. And then we will deal with these arisings that get triggered up outside us later. So what I mean by a bottom line pattern is an underlying motivational pattern that has come to be beyond awareness initially and underpins one aspect of our personal, unique way of being in life and living. That is, in this bottom line pattern story, I didn't know that I had a bottom line pattern of being totally responsible for everything I engaged with in life until I was 44. Reflection after this discovery revealed that I had unconsciously taken up this inner stance at 10 years old. And so my bottom line pattern story coming into consciousness. I had a bottom line pattern of perceiving and acting as if I was totally responsible for everything I engaged with in life. I didn't realise I had this pattern so strongly until, at 44, someone introduced me to the wisdom available through being present to the symbols in dreams as pointers to the message and invitation in the dream. In this particular dream, one scene was a very pale, emaciated teenager sorting a huge amount of laundry onto many shelves. There was also a sense of not being able to go outside. Another scene was of the room where I received the dream support, all topsy-turvy with the chair I was sitting in hanging from the ceiling and the dream supporter in it. The dream supporter facilitated my dialoguing with the symbols in these two dream energy scenes. The outcome was that I hadn't played, meaning to operate with any sense of responsibility, since a 10-year-old experience, when I was so enamoured with being successfully responsible that it became the basis of how I engaged with life, without being conscious that this was so. The wisdom revealed in dialoguing with the upside-down chair in a topsy-turvy room was a better way to see the world. Since then, I have been integrating play, not being responsible for anything but my personal need to relax, into my life and living. My bottom line pattern of being totally responsible in all engagements with life is now much more in balance, and therefore I am more whole, or as Johnson would say, made more holy. My view of this reality experience for me is that my true self invited me to bring more balance into my life through symbolic language in the dreamscape. Interpretation was facilitated by that imaginative quality that is part of our human equipment to live life positively, through allowing metaphor and symbol to have meaning in our conscious reality. A half-minute pause for you to name a bottom-line experience of yours coming into consciousness. A gong tap, 20 seconds, will happen before speaking starts again. Story. True self-reality coming into consciousness. For some 12 months, my administration had been letting me know of several ways in which I was not conforming appropriately. My personal sense was that I was conforming appropriately. Since I am an articulate person, I attempted to bridge this chasm of misunderstanding in 7 different and very creative ways. All 7 attempts seemed to me to be falling on deaf ears. I was at my wit's end about what to do, since I had deep commitment to continuing with this organisation. Then I heard a lecture about 3 phases of intimacy. 1. A honeymoon time when all is going well. 2. A time when differences emerge and need to be negotiated and integrated. When I gave time to considering this, I said to myself about phase 2, don't tell me that the horrible experience for me of being grossly misunderstood over these last months means that I'm in the 2nd phase of intimacy with my administration. I had a deep laugh inside myself at the discrepancy between intimacy pattern phase 2 and feeling reality within me. For me, there was obviously no possibility of moving to phase 3 of intimacy, which is a deeper relationship because of being able to negotiate integrating the differences. At a conscious level of interior conversation within me, I knew that it takes 2 to tango. In this situation, it was that they weren't going to move and I wasn't going to move, and so therefore a clear decision emerged for me to part company to protect my personal integrity as I interpreted that to be. In retrospect, I have the sense that this was my true self inviting me to take action to protect my personal inner authority and to maintain my personal benchmark of interior integrity. Again, a half-minute pause for you to name a true self-reality experience of yours coming into consciousness. And again, a gong tap 20 seconds before speaking starts again. It is noteworthy that for these bottom line pattern and true self invitations arising from the unconscious, that these examples illustrate that the process of coming to a stage of healing is noticing, listening, owning, accepting an invitation, engaging in an interior conversation, and then activating balancing and or growth and or healing outcomes. There isn't time now. However, I invite you to look at the process that worked for you in your personal examples at some other time. My name for this process of being present to inner invitations arising from previously unconscious issues is shaking hands with shadow. The context here in which I am using the word shadow is any invitation that arises regarding any quality or reality that initially is below conscious awareness. It's also noteworthy that emotional intelligence has a lot more to reveal of inner reality than intellectual intelligence has. A personal further note I make is that through these experiences of shaking hands with my shadow, I did experience what Johnson posits. As the shadow is drawn up into consciousness, it becomes softer, more pliable, more gentle. Surely an experience of healing. So let's now explore the square and its triggered reaction. So this is when there's something from the unconscious which gets triggered up from outside us or from different levels of our consciousness. And really it is when there's a little thing out there has a much more out of balance reaction. That is, there's a little trigger and there's an overreaction to that trigger. And some of the ways that comes out for all of us in ordinary life is blaming, accusing, threatening, loading onto. And there's a more serious level of that, which comes out as domestic violence, road rage, bullying, war, all kinds of disrespect, etc. And I call all of those, minor and major, shadow coming out sideways. Now, Robert Bly, in his book, a little book about the human shadow, says that for everything we do in our conscious, there's something goes in the long bag over the shoulder, and that's his definition of shadow. I haven't got a long bag, but I've got a bundle of experiences that are there below conscious, and they are what we don't like, rejected, haven't dealt with, unaware of. And for everything in that bundle, in our shadow, it's underpinned by fear, trauma, pointing the finger, scratchy energy. And for every one of those experiences, there is interior pain. And when it's there in the unconscious and not dealt with when the invitations come to deal with it, then it comes out sideways, my words. And an interpretation of coming out sideways is common projection and me not emerging through conscious awareness. So there's something in the unconscious which gets picked up outside, and there's an overreaction because we haven't been present to it. And so this is the beginning, or one corner, of our experiential energy triangle of potential healing. So we can project, and also we can experience that we are projected onto. So how do we deal with knowing that we are projecting? And when we do know it, what do we do? Important to pause and be your observer self, or with other people, a witnesser. And to do that in a contemplative, that is, giving prolonged attention to. And once you've given the prolonged attention to ask questions to take it deeper or to see the real reality. And so that's the second point of the triangle, that individually we are invited, or we can witness other people and invite them to shake hands with their shadow and be present to your own experiential shadow stories. 2 points of the triangle. The third point of the triangle is whether we give projection or are the victim of projection being loaded onto us. That's a reality of life for all of us, both ways. We project what we haven't been present to, and we suffer, say, where did that come from, when someone is projecting onto us. And so the third level is witnessing energies, or taking notice of invitational depthing questions when we realise that we've overreacted to a small thing out there which we responded to as if it was a big thing out there. So that is the experiential triangle. There is a half a minute now for you to let surface an experience where you witnessed projection from yourself or onto yourself, or from or onto others. A gong tap 20 seconds before speaking begins again. Johnson has this to say about projection from me. Heaping abuse does great damage, not only to others, but to us as well. For as we project our shadow, we give away an essential ingredient of our own psychology. Integrating such wisdom into life and living would mean having strategies to track and avoid personal projection. A very helpful partner strategy is how to cope when projection is loaded onto you. There isn't time now to detail these. In conclusion, it is out of personal experience of shaking hands with personal shadow and handling situations where projection onto and or projection from has happened to us that we are enabled personally to experience inner healing and reconciliation. In this way, we contribute our small part to increasing healing and reconciliation in the universe.